Hey guys, hi, welcome back once again. My name is Vaishali, and having learned quite a few things from, through, and from within human interactions, and having pursued and completed my master's in business administration and in clinical psychology, and having had the chance to work as a counselor and a therapist over the last 5 years, and thereby having had the chance to thereby somewhere blend and collaborate and integrate all of those aspects and all of those points of views. I today wish to talk about the war that the world is experiencing today. The war that everybody, or almost everybody, is talking about, or at least is thinking about consciously, or at least unconsciously. The war that is affecting all of us to some degree, in conscious and in unconscious ways, with regards to our present, our future, and our past as well. Because without our past, without our history, and the experiences that come together as a resultant of our past, of our histories, showcases in our present, and it's our present that determines our future. And as a metaphor, if we can mathematically put it, if A equals to B equals to C, then A equals to C. Which in a way with regards to our history then tells us that if our past results in our present, which then results in our future, to some degree at least, our past results in our future. And thereby, whether we look at it mathematically or whether we look at it from historical point of view, it invariably is about pattern formation and pattern recognition. To then consciously decide if this pattern that has been forming in keeping with our past and is showing up as a present today needs to be carried forward or whether it needs to be interrupted. So, very objectively speaking, with regards to our objective and our subjective experiences, with regards to our objective and our subjective realities, with regards to our past, present, and our future, I personally noticed a few things. Firstly, that history keeps repeating itself and we barely ever learn from it. We keep recreating and repeating the past over and over and over and over again, even when it's destructive, even when it's unhealthy. That humans do not learn from the lessons of their own history, from the lessons of their own stories, from their own personal experiences. It in a way tells us how blind we are towards our own selves. How blind-sighted can we truly be about our own ignorance, and thereby to a large degree even unaccountable towards them, for we can't take accountability of things that we are essentially ignorant about, that we are essentially unaware about in the most conscious ways. And if we cannot be accountable, we naturally cannot be responsible. And as Broch Spinoza had said, that if you want the present and the future to be a little different from the past, study the past. And in my understanding, what he essentially is saying, learn from the past. Look into the past and not get stuck on it, not get stuck with it, but go back there to learn from it, to observe it, to study it, to then be able to discern with wisdom, with clarity, as to what we need to carry forward and what we need to leave behind. For many a times, the hardest part for us is not about letting go, but it's more so about starting over. Starting over without any preconceived bias and notion, which invariably implies having a beginner's mindset of not knowing anything and of gradually becoming open to as many possibilities and as many mistakes with those possibilities as there possibly can be. Because as much as we do not like committing mistakes, as much as mistakes makes us feel guilty and ashamed, the part of evolution or the path of evolution only happens through trials and errors. And invariably, because to a large degree we do not like to commit mistakes and errors, we keep repeating the past, the familiar, over and over and over again, even when our own history has proven that it's unhealthy, even when it becomes a bloodbath. Which brings me to another point, the second point. As I was looking in for the history of humans being in conflicts and in wars, I was shocked to learn that the recorded statistics of the last 3,500 years tells us that 3,200 years out of 3,500 years have been recorded as war times, as times of major conflicts. Which in a way then makes me wonder, are we naturally a very violent species? Are we a naturally chaos loving species? Because whether we talk about conflicts, be it in the battlefield, wherein real wars are happening, wherein real lives are being lost, we also experience conflicts in our most intimate, close relationships, be it within the parent child, the father son, the mother daughter, the siblings, the extended families, or even between partners, business partners, or partners in personal life. Now, whether we term to call them as husband and wife, or we term to call them as anything else, we all experience conflicts. Which in a way tells me that unconsciously we are a conflict rehearsed species. We have rehearsed conflicts so many times through the course of our history, either within the family dynamics or outside of it in the battlefields, that we keep replaying it over and over again, even when we consciously say that we wish to experience peace. This point also makes me think and question as to why do we say that everything is fair in love and war, which if again I mathematically look at it, is like saying that if A equals to B, then quite naturally B equals to A. So if love equals to war, war actually equals love as well. So whatever you apply in war can and needs to be applied in case of love as well. And very unconsciously and very unknowingly, in the name of honor, honor killing, in the name of religion, in the name of community, in the name of skin tones, black and whites, in the name of casteism, we kill in the name of fanatic love. We kill in the name of blind, unconscious love, in the name of blind, unconscious loyalties, in the name of blind, unconscious respect. And that's quite a scary place to be in, which is why humans most of the times are most scared of humans. Which is why humans most of the times have difficulty trusting other humans and themselves as well. Which is why it's scary to think that it's only 3,500 years of recorded history. But if we go back in time, wherein we were actually hunters and gatherers, we would even realize then that as species of the wild, species living in the wild, we were quite likely engaged in little battles, in little conflicts over resources of food, water, and land. And unfortunately, we still are fighting over the same things after thousands and thousands and thousands of years. That in our understanding brings power, brings status. And if we turn the pages of our history books, we'll also notice that fathers have killed their sons, sons have killed their fathers, or daughters have killed their fathers, and the other way too, with regards to power and position. And the easiest one that tells us about that history is the history of royalties, the history of dynasties. So I'm not really sure today, or I'm a little confused today, whether are we actually conflict avoidant as a species, or are we actually conflict rehearsed as a species? Now, of course, that conflict has been rehearsed a multiple times, a million times at an unconscious level. Weirdly enough, we even fight for peace. I am not sure whether that should horrify me as a species, as a part of the human species, or that should be the most comedic and stupid paradox that we get to experience. Well, any kind of conflict is very dramatic as well. And whether we talk of our families, or we talk of our workplaces, or we talk of the theater, the movies, the politics of all and every kind of business, the politics of all and every kind of family, or the wars that we have experienced so far and are experiencing today, is all shaped by a lot of drama, because none of these things happen without trauma. And maybe very unconsciously, re-emphasizing on the word unconsciously, we might just be addicted to the chaos and the drama of our own narrative, of our own unconscious. Fourthly, this war also pointed out to me that we are horrible as a species in resolving conflicts, in repairing things, in repairing relationships, in repairing communications, which is why we keep recreating the same past in the same present, leading to the same future over and over and over again. Otherwise, how is it possible that over the last 3,500 years, we've had 3,200 years experienced as wars, experienced as conflicts? How is it possible that even when we were hunter-gatherers, we were fighting and battling and having conflicts with regards to resources, land, water, food, power, and we are experiencing the similar conflicts even today, thousands and thousands and thousands of years later, or even maybe millions of years later, which then begs me to question if we have truly evolved, psychologically, emotionally evolved, or the ways in which we engage in conflicts have evolved. That's a question that I'll be thinking about, that I'll be speculating about, at least for a while now. Another aspect that I also noticed was that our vocabulary is quite twisted with regards to our own understanding of things, which makes our perception quite skewed, quite disoriented as well, at least in my understanding. For many a times, or a lot many times, we say cause and effect, which in my understanding is making it too simplistic, almost childlike, to understand and to even appreciate our own complexity. Cause and effect to our subconscious almost sounds like that if I have problems with regards to my blood pressure, there is only one cause for it. For the effect is blood pressure problem, and there is one cause for it. Just like the war that is happening today, or the blood pressure problem, or any other problem that we experience, there are a multitude of causes. There are multiple causes that creates one effect or multiple effects, or an effect that can be experienced in a multitude of ways, in multiple ways. So let's understand this thing from two examples. Say if I have problems with regards to blood pressure, can there be only one cause for it? Quite naturally, many of us would say no, unless, of course, we are a toddler. we'll at least name down 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 causes for that one effect to show up. Likewise, if we take another example, with regards to India being a colony of the British rule at one point in time, can we only say that there was one single cause because of which India got colonized for so many years, for so many hundreds of years? Well, quite naturally, no. There had to be multiple causes even for that to happen. So maybe we need to change our vocabulary. We need to correct our vocabulary to have a corrective experience of our own experiences as well. To have a corrective experience or corrective experiences of our own history, of our own story, of our own past, present, and future as well. Because unless those corrective words are put into action, or even used in the first place, we will keep playing the similar narratives time and time and time again, wherein history would keep repeating itself, wherein the past would keep repeating itself, becoming our present and our future over and over and over again. Which makes me think of another quote. If history keeps repeating itself, and despite repetition, if we still think that the unexpected keeps happening over and over again, how incapable human must be to not learn from its own experiences, to not see and recognize its own patterns. How incapable are we of wisdom? How incapable are we of then calling ourselves even somewhat intelligent? Now, if you look at the causes and the effects, or the causes and its effect, for the reasons for this particular war, and we can take a look at the conflicts within our own families and within our own interpersonal relationships. With regards to this particular war, there are political reasons, which of course talks about power and domination and control, and attacking it and defending that. Resource and financial reasons, religious reasons, making it now to some degree a holy war. And then the personalities of the leaders who have gotten engaged in this war have all been talked about, is all being talked about for the past so many days. Which also then brings me to another point, that as much as it is important to be in the present, that we can only be in the present and be completely in the present, wherein we are very mindfully aware of how we are contributing towards the future that we are already creating today, that we are already creating in the present. Which, in a way, in my understanding, makes me think of a beautiful example over here to help us understand that. And it comes from the story of Mahabharata. Now, as Indians, whoever is aware of the story of Mahabharata and is able to recollect the character of Abhimanyu, the child warrior who died at the age of 15 or 16 in the battlefield, fighting the Kauravas when he was surrounded by them. He was actually being prepared for this very war 16 years before the day he died on the battlefield. So, quite logically, quite obviously, and maybe not so obviously, the message was being given to Abhimanyu. The lesson was being imparted to this unborn child. The message of how to fight was not being delivered to the pregnant woman, Abhimanyu's mother, but it was being delivered, it was being given, it was being taught to Abhimanyu, who was still not born at that point in time. So, in a way, understanding the present with regards to what has happened in the past to be able to see the patterns, to be able to recognize the patterns, to be able to forecast them well enough, like the way we forecast our weathers, like the way we forecast the stock market, at least to a degree, helps us prepare for that future that is yet to come. So if we can be in the present like that, wherein we are able to take the lessons from the past and able to recognize the patterns that have created the present, we then are in a place to discern what we need to take ahead in the future, what we need to create in the future, because the foundation of the future starts in the present. So whether it was preparing Abhimanyu for the war, wherein he still was not born, 16 years down the line, by looking at the past events, to then even have the wisdom to understand that while I prepare the future for this war, I can also try in these next 16 years to prevent the same. At least I can do my level best to try and prevent it as much as I possibly can. And that to me personally talks about a human or humans that are present and wise enough to study the past, to observe the past, to see its implications on the present, to then be able to take corrective measures in the present to lay the foundation for the future that is yet to come, and not to repeat it the way our recorded statistics are telling us, wherein only out of so many thousands of years, 3,500 years, 230 years have experienced some sort of peace. Because if we are able to do that, peace will not be something that we'll be fighting for. Peace will not be something that we'll be demanding, for it comes naturally. Peace will not be an alien thing for us. Love and war will not be equated in the same way. It is when we have been able to do that, we'll actually be able to call ourselves wise humans, intelligent humans, who are not stuck in the past, but learning from the past in the present to be able to take corrective measures for the future, because the foundation of the future gets embedded in the present. The other observation through this war and the histories of all of the human conflicts, whether inside our homes or outside of our homes, tells me that humans unconsciously, repeating the word unconsciously here, unconsciously thrive in chaos, thrive in conflicts, thrive when emotions are experienced on extreme ends. For then peace, to that part of us that is so unconscious, sounds very boring. Boring just like a healthy meal. For most healthy meals, for most healthy lifestyle, when we study it, when we think about it, sounds pretty boring. And that is why probably to some degree, knowingly or unknowingly, we have got to keep reinforcing. I'm being very mindful when I say the word reinforcing. The word healthy lifestyle, healthy body, healthy mind, very clearly indicating that we essentially do not have that. For if we had that, if it came so naturally to us, we would not need to reinforce it time and time and time and time again. Through another lens, as I've studied marketing, as I've worked in the spaces wherein I'd worked as marketing executive, helps me understand another human psychology, which is where the marketers use any attention is good attention. Whether it's positive or negative, whether it's good or bad, so long as it catches the eyeballs, so long as it's able to sell, so long as it's been able to be remembered, so long as it's being attended to, both short term and long term, is worth every penny, is worth every dime, which comes from a marketing nuanced concept of attention currency paradox. And quite naturally, every kind of attention, whether it's within the homes or whether it's on the battlegrounds, draws attention, which then makes me personally think that humans can tolerate Humans can even digest both love and hate because they both draw attention, they both capture attention, they both engage in attention, with attention. But humans cannot tolerate indifference. And thereby, in my understanding, the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference, which is why we lean either towards too good, too bad, too nice, too mean, but never something in between, because in between it feels mediocre. In between it feels too ordinary. In between it doesn't sound too exciting, whether in the positive way or in the negative way. In between state, we do not feel the rush of too many things, which is why, in my understanding, peace can sound very boring too. From another point of view, from another perspective, from another lens, it also tells me that if majority of our history has been about wars, has been about conflicts, has been about battles, we quite realistically are a traumatized species. We quite literally are a wounded species who have almost normalized violence and brutality and war and bloodshed and conflict on an unconscious level to a very large degree. And maybe we need to have that reality check to be able to dismantle and probably reassemble a different reality if we wish to do so. But that can only happen if we actually embrace, if we actually accept our reality first. Because without acceptance, change does not happen, or at least voluntary change does not happen. So, in my understanding, in the present moment, we take stock of all of our inventory or inventories, all of the big and the small life decisions, all of the big and the small conflicts that we have engaged in or tried to run away from, to notice our own patterns, to observe our own self, to then objectively be able to take accountability of the stock of our inventories, of our past inventories. Because only when we are able to take accountability of our own inventories, of the stock of our own inventories, can we take responsibility towards them. Can we have the capacity to be able to respond wisely with discernment towards them so that we don't keep repeating the past unconsciously, wherein the past keeps becoming our present and our future unconsciously, unknowingly, wherein we have the discernment and the wisdom to be able to filter out as to what parts of the past needs to be carried into the present and into the future, and what parts of the past needs to be left in the past itself. For as Carl Jung had said, which he had observed, that the human mind oscillates between sense and nonsense. And if for most of our histories, whether in the personal front or outside of our homes, we've engaged mostly in conflicts, despite not wanting to experience them, it kind of gives us a reality check that unconsciously, unknowingly, most of the times, we do engage in nonsense. We do engage in things that are unhealthy, even deadly for us. So let's reflect on all of those aspects which this war is revealing for us on a very personal level, on a very interpersonal, family and community level, and on a global level as well. For if the past is unresolved, it will keep repeating itself in the present and in the future, hoping that it gets resolved someday or the other. And if that is the way it's got to be resolved, it cannot happen without repetition. It cannot happen without our engagement, consciously or unconsciously. So let's get brutally honest with ourselves on a very personal level to be able to reflect for our own selves. What does conflict reveal for us? Have we engaged in conflicts ourselves? Have we at times felt powerful and at times felt powerless? Have we initiated some kinds of conflicts? Because probably peace felt boring. For our system has gotten used to conflicts and dramas and cannot do without it. For we at times have felt powerful when we get engaged in conflicts, even on the personal level, within our interpersonal relationships. Have we felt that we got attention that in times of peace seemed missing, even if that attention felt unhelpful? But still, was attention enough? Or have we felt powerless? Have we felt that we are not able to resolve anything and have thereby completely avoided conflicts, at least on most days? Which is where, in both cases, our past, our history keeps repeating itself to find a resolution for its own self, a resolution for its own self. Let's try and reflect on all of those parameters, and I will see you once again the next week. Till then, stay tuned in. And guys, if you do like the contextual content of these videos, please do like, share, and subscribe.